Once upon a time, there was an ice cream shop owner named Maria who had a heart of gold. She loved nothing more than seeing the smiling faces of children enjoying her delicious treats. One day, as she was preparing for another busy day at her shop, she had an idea that would make her heart swell with joy. Maria decided that she would offer free ice cream to all the children in her community. She knew that some families were struggling to make ends meet, and she wanted to do her part to make sure that no child went without a sweet treat. Word quickly spread throughout the community about Maria's generosity, and soon parents and children alike were flocking to her shop. Children giggled with excitement as they picked out their favorite flavors, and parents beamed with gratitude for the kind-hearted shop owner who was making their day just a little bit brighter. As the days went by, Maria's shop became a hub of activity. Families from all over the town came to visit, and the joy and laughter that filled the air was infectious. Maria felt overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and appreciation she received from her community, and she knew that she had made a real difference in the lives of these families. Months turned into years, and Maria's free ice cream program became a beloved tradition in the community. Children grew up with fond memories of her shop, and parents continued to be grateful for the little bit of sweetness that Maria brought into their lives. In the end, Maria's act of kindness had a ripple effect that spread far beyond her little ice cream shop. Her generosity inspired others in the community to give back as well, and soon there were other businesses offering free services to those in need. Maria's ice cream shop became a symbol of hope and kindness in the community, and her legacy lived on long after she had retired. And though she had never set out to change the world, Maria knew that she had made a difference in the lives of countless children, and that was all the reward she needed. Sophie had been working as a food delivery person for several months and had always enjoyed meeting new people and delivering their favorite meals to their doorstep. But one day, she received an order from an old lady named Mrs. Johnson, who lived in a tall building with many stairs. Sophie arrived at the building and saw that Mrs. Johnson was waiting for her at the door, leaning on a walking cane. Sophie greeted her warmly and handed her the bag of food, but Mrs. Johnson hesitated and looked worried. "I'm sorry, young lady," Mrs. Johnson said, "but I don't think I can make it up all those stairs with this cane. I ordered this food because I don't have anyone else to help me, but I don't want to be a bother." Sophie looked at Mrs. Johnson and saw the worry and fear in her eyes. She knew that she couldn't just leave her there, and she decided to do something extra special for her. "Mrs. Johnson, don't worry," Sophie said with a smile. "I'll help you up the stairs. It's no problem at all." Mrs. Johnson looked surprised and grateful, and she thanked Sophie for her kindness. Sophie put the bag of food on her back and helped Mrs. Johnson up the stairs step by step. It was a slow and difficult climb, but Sophie kept encouraging Mrs. Johnson and helped her rest when she needed to. Finally, they reached Mrs. Johnson's apartment, and Sophie helped her inside and made sure she was comfortable. Mrs. Johnson was overwhelmed by Sophie's kindness and generosity. She thanked her and offered to pay her extra for her help, but Sophie refused. "Mrs. Johnson, it was my pleasure to help you," Sophie said with a smile. "We all need a little help sometimes, and I'm happy to be there for you." From that day on, Sophie and Mrs. Johnson became good friends, and Sophie would often stop by to check on her and bring her favorite meals. And every time she saw Mrs. Johnson's walking cane, she was reminded of the power of kindness and compassion in making a difference in someone's life. There was a guy named Mike who worked as a project manager in a big corporation. He was known for his dedication to his job and often stayed late in the office to finish his work. However, one evening, he found himself working alone as all his colleagues had already left for the day. Mike was struggling to complete an important project that was due the next day. His boss, who was notorious for being mean and unforgiving, had set an unrealistic deadline and expected Mike to deliver the project on time. As the clock ticked away, Mike began to feel anxious and stressed. Just when he thought he was going to be working alone all night, one of his colleagues, Sarah, walked in. She saw that Mike was still working and offered to stay with him to help finish the project. Mike was grateful for the company and welcomed her assistance. Soon after, another colleague, Jack, showed up. Jack noticed that Mike and Sarah were still working and decided to join them. One by one, more colleagues arrived, each of them offering to stay and help. As the night wore on, Mike began to feel less stressed and more motivated. The presence of his colleagues gave him the support he needed to keep going. They worked together, sharing ideas and offering suggestions. They even ordered pizza and drinks to keep their energy levels up. Despite the tight deadline and the difficult boss, Mike and his colleagues managed to complete the project just before dawn. They celebrated their achievement with high fives and laughter, feeling proud of what they had accomplished together. From that day forward, Mike and his colleagues developed a stronger bond. They learned the importance of supporting each other in times of need and realized that teamwork and collaboration are crucial for success. As for Mike's mean boss, he was impressed with the team's dedication and was forced to acknowledge that he had been wrong to set such an unrealistic deadline. He apologized to Mike and his team, earning their respect and admiration. Overall, the experience taught Mike and his colleagues a valuable lesson about the power of teamwork and the importance of supporting one another. They would always remember that night as the one when they came together to achieve a common goal and emerged as a stronger and more united team. Brian was a construction worker on a large construction site in the heart of the city. He had been working on the site for several months and was known for his strong work ethic and his dedication to getting the job done right. But despite his skills and hard work, Brian had recently been involved in an argument with some of his coworkers. One of the workers, a man named Sean, had taken a dislike to Brian from the beginning and had made it clear that he didn't want to work with him. Brian was frustrated by the situation, but he knew that he had to put his personal feelings aside and focus on the job at hand. He continued to work hard and do his best, hoping that he could eventually earn Sean's respect and trust. One day, while working on the construction site, Brian and Sean found themselves working together on a project involving a large crane. Sean was responsible for operating the crane, while Brian was responsible for securing the materials and ensuring that the job was done safely. As they worked together, Brian began to show Sean his skills and his knowledge of the construction industry. Sean was impressed by Brian's dedication and his willingness to work hard, even in difficult circumstances. As they continued to work together, Sean began to open up to Brian, sharing some of his own struggles and challenges on the job. Brian listened patiently and offered his own insights and advice, showing Sean that he was not just a hard worker, but also a good listener and a reliable friend. By the end of the day, Sean and Brian had made up and had formed a strong bond of friendship and respect. They had learned to work together as a team, and they had accomplished a challenging task that had required their cooperation and trust. From that day on, Brian and Sean worked together on many other projects, and they became known as a reliable and effective team on the construction site. And every time they looked up at the large crane that they had worked on together, they were reminded of the power of cooperation, trust, and friendship in the workplace. Once upon a time, there was a kind-hearted flight attendant named Emily who loved her job and took great pride in providing excellent customer service to her passengers. One day, she went above and beyond to help a passenger in need. During a long-haul flight, Sarah noticed a passenger who was traveling alone and appeared to be upset. She approached the passenger and asked if everything was okay, and the passenger explained that she was flying to attend her mother's funeral. She was worried about making it to the funeral on time because her flight had been delayed, and she was feeling anxious and overwhelmed. Sarah listened with empathy and knew she had to do something to help. She first offered the passenger some water and comforted her. Then, Sarah went out of her way to make sure the passenger was comfortable and helped her arrange alternative travel plans so that she could arrive at her destination on time. Sarah also arranged for a special meal and drinks for the passenger, and she checked in with her regularly throughout the flight to make sure she was doing okay. Sarah's kindness and compassion made a real difference for the passenger, who was touched by her thoughtful gestures and felt much more at ease. But Sarah didn't stop there. When they landed, Sarah escorted the passenger to the gate and helped her with her luggage. She even arranged for a car service to take her to the funeral home so that she wouldn't have to worry about transportation. The passenger was overwhelmed by Sarah's kindness and later wrote a letter to the airline praising her exceptional service. The letter was shared with Sarah's supervisor, who was impressed by her dedication to going above and beyond for her passengers. Sarah's act of kindness not only made a difference in the life of one passenger, but also inspired her colleagues to follow in her footsteps. Her kindness and compassion served as a reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures can make the biggest impact on someone's life. In the end, Sarah's act of kindness reminded us all that empathy and compassion can go a long way in making a difference in the world. Her actions serve as a shining example of what it truly means to be a caring and compassionate human being.